Hello, everybody. My name is Ivan Stefani. I work for Zurich Insurance, and I'm part of the internal communication team at Corporate Center. When I was first asked to come here, I was very happy to be here and share some of the work we do. And then I went to check out the website, and I realized that you're all digital experts. So I started to shake a little bit, and I really thought, what should I talk about? Should I talk about great tools and technical innovation? Probably not, because we're still an insurance company and we're not the greatest in innovating in terms of platforms. So what I did is I picked something which is quite Zurich specific, and what I want to talk to you about today is the whole process on an internal focus on how we create content to the production of content and then the distribution. So first of all, who sits at the table when we create content to distribute to our employees? How do we get to a two-way approach and not just a top-down approach? Then how do we produce this thing? How do we get the right testimonials to talk about the strategic topics that we want to distribute? And how can we be fast in producing? And then finally, I will touch a little bit on the channels that we have to collaborate and to talk with our employees across the globe. So, first of all, the content creation. Let me quickly go back 2 years in time. We, at the group level, were split. So we had marketing and we had communication. There was just one door in between, but one door was enough to never open it. So the communication did their own stuff and marketing did their own stuff, and there was no really an integrated communication in the company. So what we did, and one of our colleagues started this this year. By the way, we are one team now for 1.5 years. And one of our colleagues in external communications started this newsroom approach. Why is this important? This is a little bit of a background information, but it's important because right now I feel you need to be fast in communicating to your employees. You see the same thing out there. They don't want to wait for the newspaper the next day. They want to read the things right away. So what we do here is we have a table. We sit there every morning at 9 o'clock, 15 to 20 minutes, and we discuss the main topics. Internal comms is there, external branding to bring the marketing perspective in as well, and thought leadership. Just a little detail on that. So the internal comms is there to make sure all the employee-related topics get covered. At Zurich, internal comms has consultants who are responsible for functions. So they make sure that all the functions can bring in their topics at the bigger table. So we have a comms consultant who is responsible for finance, one for ops and technology, and so on. Then we have the external communication. Of course, they will bring in the whole external perspective. What are the competitors doing? And politically, what is happening? Trump and so on. I'm glad we discuss on a daily basis now. Then we have the branding. They make sure that, because that's also very Zurich specific, we were quite detached in advertisement and the communication we did internally. So by bringing them together, it was easier to make sure that our advertisement is not just a dream world and what we really communicate is completely different. And then finally, we have thought leadership, and those are the guys who make sure that our strategic topics are placed in the markets. For Zurich, that's cyber risk, flood resilience, and income protection gap. So 3 very insurance-specific topics that we want to be experts in at the market. This is external, but they're also at the table because it's important that our employees are aware of what we're doing outside. And don't just read it in the newspaper or LinkedIn. So these guys make sure that we can fast create content and make sure that all the employees get a voice that gets to the bigger table. Once the content is there, I have this thing I didn't realize. Once the content is there, and this is also very important, we have an internal agency. So everything we do is created internally. There is no external agency involved in all the content that we share and distribute amongst our employees. So we have guys sitting there doing movie productions. So we basically, when we say, for instance, income protection gap, we want to distribute this and make all people aware. Who's the best person to do that? In our case, CEO Europe, for example. So we get an appointment with CEO Europe. We get the right channel, the right media. We say, okay, we want to make employees aware through a video with our CEO. We produce it internally and we distribute it, and I'll get to that later. On top of that, we have a content management system which makes sure that our employees can produce their own stuff. And this goes beyond images and videos that we do and they can download. But we've tried, over the last month and years, we've tried to identify which are the most important media that they use. So we, for instance, banners, all kind of audio recordings, this whole selfie thing going on. So we provide them with instructions on how to do elevator pitches, for example. We provide them with very simple templates to create their own banners, so they can just simply replace the image, put a new title, and share it on our intranet. They don't need us to be involved. And then finally, and this is, to be honest, very, very early stage, is we have material. And I'm only talking about the group now, unfortunately not about countries. But we have material there that they can use. Of course, everybody has a smartphone now, but beyond that, they can take our conference cameras, they can take photography cameras, they can take for audio recording, whatever we have. They can use our Macs to edit their own videos, because a lot of people from hobbies and so on, they have their own skills in producing that stuff, and they can just come over, grab the stuff, and produce their own stuff. This is just to give you some figures. I'm only talking about corporate center right now, not about the countries. We produce approximately 150 videos every year at the group. And this is like more than triple what we had before we had this internal agency. So by having them, we can very quickly act and produce within one day and publish. Photography, a lot of projects. Why do I say that? I think in the digital media, it's very important that you don't just share text, but you get a visual support, because you'll get more attraction for your article. And then, as I said, very early stage, but we're starting to get people there and produce their own stuff. Channels. Like most of the companies, we do have a website where we distribute externally, and then we have, in our case, called CNET, which is our intranet. The intranet has been revised 2 years ago. So we have two things which are important. First of all, the departments can publish their own stuff. Not on a global scale, but within their function. They have editor rights, and they can use the produced stuff that they did, publish it to their audience. Secondly, all the articles have the ability to be commented and rated. And this is really helping us to understand what they like and what they don't like. Just very briefly, on the external side, we're mainly using LinkedIn. This goes back to the thought leadership, like the strategic topics that I mentioned before. We're trying to push it through LinkedIn. The good thing there is that meanwhile, our own employees start to comment on the LinkedIn stuff that we do, which is a great sign. And finally, and most importantly, do you know Yammer? Of course. We've started using Yammer about 1.5 years ago. It didn't work so well at the beginning. So we thought, how can we bring it closer to the people? And as we are a global company with over 50,000 employees in 200 markets, most of the people have never seen our management. So there is a little detachment between the management and the employees. So what we tried to do is we tried to bring the management closer to the employees by using Yammer. And I'll get to that later. So just briefly, some of the things that we did, and I mean, I can show you some of the examples later. First of all, the user-generated content. We did one of the topics we initiated like this is the so-called Zurich Oxygen, which is an HR-related topic. So we wanted to know what it needs to be a great manager at Zurich. And we started this video by just using our group head HR with a blue box and saying, for me, it needs this and this skill. Puts it in the box, throw away, and it goes to the country. And then all the countries did their own selfies with the smartphones, and we got a whole chain of skills that it needs across Zurich to be a great manager. And this is one of the user-generated videos that we produced. Secondly, what we discovered is there are some formats which are quite function-specific. And that's why we started with this rental system so that they can produce their own stuff. I guess you all know TED Talks, for example. And we have our global head of audit is a great supporter of video production and so on. So what he started to do, he started his own so-called Z Talks amongst group audits on a global level. And what they do is they do this conference and they get to us, they get the cameras and everything, they record it on their own, they translate it and they distribute via CNET on a global scale. So you get all these topics across the global audit functions. And then finally, to get back to the point which is pretty important to me, is how to get the managers closer to the employees. We started to implement some formats which support that. One of that is the hot seat. The hot seat puts our CEOs on a seat and we just ask them questions. We ask them, what do you do when you're not managing 5,000 people at Zurich? What do you eat for dinner when you get home? What's your favorite band? And so on. And by doing so, and this is only been possible because of the internal agency. Because we started 2 years ago to build this relationship between the internal production and the management. So they started to be more comfortable and used to the whole video formats, and they wanted to produce more. Because they saw the added value of talking to their employees and getting closer to them. And the same thing for Yammer. So just 2 examples. I took this out today. Right now, we have the Investor Day going on. So our management is sitting in London, and they need to communicate our next strategic cycle to the investors. So 2 examples. First of all, one of the guys at Corporate Center who's responsible for real estate just posted that there are some digital signage available if you want to watch and live stream the Investor Day. So as an employee, you get a notification, you see that right away, and you can go downstairs and watch it. Secondly, and this goes back to the management again, as he's now our CEO, group CEO, is now in London and sometimes introverted and detached from the employees, what we do is next Monday we'll have a Yammer session. The Yammer session, Ask Mario. So next Monday, he's going to sit there in front of a laptop, and all employees across the globe can ask him questions. And the good thing is really, meanwhile, it's him replying. It's not a comms expert replying. So he sits there for an hour and tries to reply to all the questions, and all the other employees see the answer. And the good thing about it is that we can access this on all kind of devices. So on my smartphone, I can go into the app and access the conversation. Okay. Takeaways. If I have to sum it up in 3 things, first of all, I would say be fast and discuss regularly. That was the case for us because of 2 reasons. First of all, the newsroom made us much faster than we were before. And secondly, the internal agency. So we don't need anybody externally to be involved, and we can be much, much faster and more cost efficient. Secondly, it has really helped us to make sure that our management is made out of normal people. It's not just red carpet. It's people who are there and want to interact with the normal employees. So I would say, if you can, use the digital media you have to get your management closer to the people. And I'm not saying we have the greatest tool, because I would be lying. But within what we have, we're trying to build that relationship. And thirdly, the content management system has also really helped us to enable departments to create their own stuff. So they really want to create their own content, because they can also talk to us, and if we identify that in several markets there is the need to create something, we start to think about an instruction, we start to think about a template or something that they can use. I hope I haven't lost you. That's it from my end. Questions?
No? Okay. Then I'll start with some questions. Let's start with the CEO first. What you just described with the Yammer session and stuff like that. And you mentioned something that hints at, initially it wasn't him who answered it, but somebody from the comms team. What made the change so that he said, I want to do it myself?
I would say, I mean, I can answer that question for other management members. Specifically for the CEO, it was a change of the CEO. Because the CEO we have right now, he doesn't want written scripts or anything. He wants to do everything on his own. So yesterday we had the leadership team meeting, and he talked for 1.5 hours without any notes or anything. So that's really a personal thing. For others, I think it was this relationship between the internal agency and the management. So with the help of the internal consultants that we have, we get in touch with the management on a regular basis. And we can show them how a short video, a to-the-point video, performs better than like a scripted 5-minute telepromptered video that they would prefer to do because it's faster for them. And by doing so, we started to slowly get into there. And I mean, the comms person is still there, but in most of the cases, it's them now.
Okay, that's good. Also, in regard to the user-generated content, do you see a big difference between the usage of the end user, so to speak, between those things that you do and those things that users generate themselves?
I think it depends a little bit on the topic. Things like the hot seat work quite well as well, even if we produce it. But normally I would say yes, because they know better what their departments want to hear, and it's less polished. It's really, it feels real. Like we had one of the examples I didn't show was our CEO in the UK. When the Brexit happened this year, he just did the selfie with his phone, and he did a statement on how this could impact Zurich in the UK. He just did it on his own. And in that case, I would say that works much better than if we get our camera crew there with the lighting and makeup and everything. It's different.
Okay, good point. Any questions?